John Kevill. I've been doing vocals in Warbringer for 20 years now, and that's it. So, Wrath and Ruin, basically the last two Warbringer records we consider to be, we found our sound, we think it stands apart and it's immediately recognizable as us, and we think the songs and performances are really good. So we want to continue with that band identity and that sound and that style. At the same time, we want it to be different and interesting and stand on its own. So we're trying to walk that balance, of course. So Wrath and Ruin, compared to Weapons of Tomorrow, is a little less sprawling, a little tighter. I'd say it's a little darker in color than Weapons of Tomorrow. And we tried to kind of have a little less delineation between the epics and the thrashers, right? We wanted kind of the mix. And I think the show's on the first track, which is kind of like an epic in scope thrashing number. Yeah. And our epic song on the record is one of the shorter songs. So we're kind of just trying to like do variants and kind of play with the sound and style that we've established on the last two records and come up with like interesting new stuff to do with it. I think we pretty much accomplished what we set out to do. The other thing is the production. We wanted like a sonic change just for the sake of having it. Not that we didn't like the sound, but we wanted it, just the sound of the record to be a little different. So we chose to go with Mark Lewis, get the production job we have. I think he did a phenomenal job. And just the change in producer and studio also changes the sound a little bit and just makes it stand apart sonically. We also tuned this record to D, which the rest of Warbringer is in E flat, except the first album, which is an E standard.
And what about the album cover? Because you guys have worked with Andreas Marschall a few times now.
Number 3.
Yeah, number 3. So what keeps you, well, first of all, Wrath and Ruin, what did you guys talk about, if anything? Did you...
So what's interesting with Andreas Marschall is actually for each of the album covers, I pretty much send him one email, and then he comes back with the cover. It's straight up like that. Really, really cool. The guy like we're not like in this deep communication. I'm just like, here's what I'm thinking, and he hits back with like, maybe maybe something like this, maybe something like that, and then like a month later, like poof, there it is, and and then like a few years later we do it again, and that's how the relationship's been. Super professional, and I really like that I can kind of hit him with a concept or an idea, and he seems to just like get it, and I don't have to say that much. So I sent him this time, you know, like the first time, Lord of the Vanquished, the themes were like nationalism and militarism and kind of the legacy of past battles, and a monument of like the pyramid at the center is a monument of that really existed, that I sent him a picture of, that he knew about because he's into this stuff, I guess, of Prussian World War I helmets stacked, about 20,000 of them, and it looks like this fish. It's the picture, if you look at it, looks like fascist Germany, but it's actually from New York, 1919, and a pile of 20,000 helmets is like an implied pile of 20,000 skulls, and so there's a real grim aspect to it. So the Woe to the Vanquished cover was the first one we did, and he really grasped those themes innately. Knew his like art history pertaining to nationalism and stuff. He put like an Italian palace behind it all. Like just a phenomenal job on Vanquish. Weapons, it was supposed to be like, if you look at the background, it's like the future weapons that are coming out from the ruins of that past, the past of industrial wars, leading into some dark and scary robotic weaponry era that we're now in, and he's like created a future monument to that with like the cyber soldiers. Kind of has this like, join us in our dark and horrific future. It has that evilness to it. And what I love so much about Andreas' style, or the work he's done for us, is each one of them looks like this grand monolithic monument, and it just has that vibe of like metal epic bigness to it, I guess. And so Wrath and Ruin, I very much want him to continue just doing what he's doing because I love it, and it really fits, I feel, the vibe and the theme of the records. So this one is more about class power, and I was sending him pictures of like a mixture of things, like certain like sci-fi dystopian cities, your Blade Runner-esque stuff, and then if you know it, a hive city from Warhammer 40K. It's called a hive city, and it's constructed in this giant like pile, and there's people up at the top, like above cloud level, the few nobles live in extreme opulence, and below everyone's like clawing each other on rats, and they never see the sun, and they hear industrial machinery for their entire lives nonstop, and it's horrible, you know. And then I was also sending various pictures of like slums and urban decay of the real world. So I was kind of like putting all that together, and I'm like, makes something, and I was like, oh, and also we have a song called Sword in the Cross. So that's where like the Cyber Knight guy comes in. So it's, and the word I threw at him was techno-feudalism, which is something this Varoufakis economist guy talks about, is where like the modern world's heading, which I think is more or less correct. Yeah. But that term techno-feudalism, like as an aesthetic, as like hit that, and he basically took all that and came back with the cover. And what it depicts is a two-tiered society where you have this like shining future medieval city in the clouds, and then below it is just like slums, ruins, industrial piping, and a wasteland that sprawls as far as the eye can see. And I think that's very much like a statement on where our world's heading. We're talking about like billionaires buying private islands and building luxury disaster bunkers, or like talking about retreating into space like Dr. Evil style and everything, and leaving sort of a dying planet with fewer, you know, more people scrounging for fewer and fewer resources behind. So it's very much supposed to like get that concept of the two-tiered society, the exalted few and the wretched many, you know, and try to like put that into a visual. So I think he did a really great job of it, and that sort of like act of mass dispossession by the elite is the wrath and ruin being rained down on everyone. The line shows up in the 6th song on the record, Strike of the Sky. So the title drop line on the record goes, rain down the wrath and ruin, just as all empires do. What sorrow to the many, what glory to the few. And that's sort of the theme of the record right there. It's fundamentally about class power and its impacts.
In this digital age of thumbnails and sort of disposable media, do you still think that album art is important for a band?
So the commercial answer may be no, but the old school metal answer is fuck yeah, you listen to full albums, goddammit. Like, this isn't some, it's not like put it on your playlist. Listen to this thing front to back and you'll get the full experience. And if you want to take like a song out of it, sure, that song will be good. But I want something that people can like put up on their wall, you know, and has that sense of, I don't know, when you look at like a Power Slave or a Rust in Peace or whatever metal records of the classic era we consider great, there's so many, you know, that's like a monument to heavy metal art right there. Not just the art itself, but the whole package of the record. Like, this whole thing comes together and is a cohesive piece that you can come back to time and time again. You can find, you can listen to the same songs and enjoy them, and you can find new stuff, and sometimes the B-side that you used to skip a couple years later now grows on you and becomes one of your favorites, and all that, like, and just like long form engagement, the super short form engagement and singles only, and here's the top song, that's the only one I listen to from this band. It's like you're cheating yourself, you know, of the actual like deeper enjoyment of art. And it's like, if you even it started as like when we're driving and stuff, even if we don't like the whole record, and like just play it front to back, we'll finish it, we'll talk about it, next record, you know. And that's just like, for me, a way better way to enjoy music and just anything. I feel like in the sort of like modern the hyper-stimulus, kind of constant hyper-stimulus we have, attention spans are growing really short, and that's sort of like blinders on a horse or something is kind of how I imagine it. And our whole band, you know, is considered, it's sort of like a backwards looking thing in some regards, in that we're saying, we don't want to do things the new way because the new way kind of sucks. And like, there used to be stuff that I consider like better, like true great works of art. It's not that there aren't good bands today, but the way the industry is moving isn't a direction I like. It's we're replacing art with content, and fuck that. You know, like, we're not making media content. This is a fucking metal album. It is specifically that. And, you know, if that's less commercially successful, to hell with it. Like, we're not gonna suck more because the wind is blowing a certain way.
Last question I have for you. Did you ever, as a teenager or kid, pick up an album based on the album art alone? Good or bad?
I'm pretty sure I did. I know that, like, Power Slave album art for me always has been like, God, and it has, just like I was talking about earlier, that like, this is a monument of, you know, metal art right here. Like the whole package of the whole thing. Look, you're looking up the monument of Entombed Eddie and the grand pyramidal complex of, you know, and then that record just kills front to back, you know. So that's probably the one. That was my first main album. But those like, my favorite era is like Power Slave, Somewhere in Time, Seventh Son, and all of those, I'm like, that album art just gets me, you know, yeah. But dude, there's so many classic metal albums that have like great art. It's like, shit, dude, while we're talking Andreas Marschall stuff, both Agent Orange and Blind Guardian, Nightfall, and Middle Earth have phenomenal album art that tells you a lot about what the album's gonna sound like and what it's gonna be. When the two kind of sync up with the sound of the music and the picture, when you're looking at the picture and you're listening to the music, and it like connects in some way, that it enhances everything.
Yeah.
Because the art takes on the qualities of the music it's representing, and the music takes on the visual quality of the art, and it just, from a sensory perspective, does something for me. Absolutely.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers, man. That's fun.